Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Telegraph Extra Presents. My name is Ben Lawrence, and I'm here to present a very special evening of music and chat to celebrate the launch of Royal Opera House Stream, where you can dig deep into the archives of the Royal Opera and the Royal Ballet and find some brilliant productions and performances. And if you were a Telegraph subscriber, you can get the whole package for £1 a month for the first 3 months if you go to the Telegraph Extra website before the end of October. So hurry. We are coming to you from the Metropolis Studios in Chiswick in West London. This is a hub of incredible music engineering and has been since the late 1980s. It's played host to a number of really big stars: Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, Amy Winehouse, Elton John, Nena Cherry, Lady Gaga, you name it, they have plied their trade within these four walls. So just a technical note before we begin this evening's performance and interviews, which is you can make the video full screen by checking on the square at the bottom of the right-hand corner of the web page as you view it. As a technophobe, I've tried this, and it is actually quite easy, so don't worry. So let me introduce our guests. I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined by two of the biggest names in opera. Firstly, a man who has been music director of the Royal Opera House for the past 20 years. He was the youngest person at the time to ever be granted that role. His gifts are many. He has a talent for bringing out the best in some of the world's greatest opera stars, combined with an exquisite musicality, and I think it would be fair to say a fair dollop of charisma as well. Sir Antonio Pappano. Tony, is opera in your blood?
Opera is in my blood. My parents are Italian. My father was a singer and a voice teacher. What more can I say?
Yeah. And so did you get the bug very early? They talk about the acting bug, but maybe there's an opera bug as well.
Well, you know, I used to play for my father. I used to accompany him and then his students. And so a lot of the operas that I conduct today, I will have played many, many times and sung all the roles, all the female roles in particular. My father was a tenor, so and so I've sung so many love duets you can't imagine with my father. But it was from an early age, and so it's inside me. Of course, the Italian language plays a big role in that. But that's why I've gone on to learn German and French, so I wouldn't be just locked into the Italian repertoire, but those are my roots, no question.
Well, we will be hearing some Italian and some French this evening, and I'd like to introduce my second guest at this stage. She is one of the world's finest lyric sopranos. She's also been called the coolest soprano in the world. Another first for her, I think she was the youngest ever singer in the Artist Studio at the Met in New York. She does a fine line in Queens, tragic queens like Cleopatra, and jubilant queens like Popea, and also is very good at these strong, smart women like Susanna in the Nozze di Figaro. Danielle de Niese. So, Danielle mentioned a few roles there. Is there a role that you're still itching to play that hasn't yet come to you?
I thought you might ask me that, but I only thought it right this second. There's probably lots of roles that I want to do in the future. Manon used to be one of the roles I used to hanker after when I was a young singer. I don't know. There's roles I also want to revisit, because having started as such a young singer in such a high level of expectation and pressure, and singing in already the Met when I was 19, I got out of the gate, as it were, quite quickly. And you know, there are roles even like Cleopatra, which I got to revisit when I sang at La Scala a couple of years ago. It was great to come back to a role I really loved and revisit it as a seasoned artist. And so there's lots of roles like that. I mean, I probably want to do everything over again and then look forward even more. But I have a decent range of roles now that I can access with my voice as it is in the moment. So
and that's strange. And so a life experience, as you get more life experience, a role changes for you, perhaps, as well. The way you see, say, Cleopatra when you were young.
No, absolutely. I mean, and for me, like in the when you have a score full of notes and things like that, what was so great is to just sort of wipe it in a way and start again. I don't think you ever really stamp and seal and deliver a role ever. I mean, it's a time capsule of a moment in time, but then, I cracked open Bohème today in the music rehearsal and saw different things that, I was fascinated by, just bits of text, bits of harmony. It was amazing. And I think that's what makes the sort of artistic endeavor. It goes on and on and on. You could be, I remember Dame Kiri Te Kanawa telling me that she's still learning, which completely floored me at the time when she said that. I just thought, oh my God, how is that possible? This is the icon of my life. And
well, the older you get, I sort of feel the less I feel I know, the older I get. But maybe that's just me. Maybe Kiri feels the same. But you mentioned La Bohème there, so that brings us very neatly to the first performance of this evening. Would you like to tell us a bit about it?
Well, so we're going to perform Musetta's aria from La Bohème, which is Quando me ne vo. It's quite a famous aria, and it happens in Act 2 in the famous Café Momus scene where all the Bohemians and, community are meeting and enjoying the marketplace and everything. Musetta rolls up and causes a bit of a scene because she runs into her ex, Marcello, and she is definitely aware of his presence and he's ignoring her. So she decides to sing this song, Quando me ne vo. When I go down the street, everyone stops and stares. I remember asking Richard about it. It was the one line I couldn't reconcile. I just thought, I know everything else about this character, but who gets up and says this line? Who says that line? And he said, maybe it's something Marcello used to tell you when you go down the street. People stop and stare. And I went, that's a key to the whole role. And I really, really enjoyed it.
And Danny will be appearing as Musetta in Richard Jones's production of La Bohème at Covent Garden, which runs until the 17th of November. There are 3 different casts, so check out which one's which when you book. So, and for now, here is a taste. So if the applause does sound quite as rapturous as it should sound, that is just because there's only a few of us in this studio. But that was truly magnificent, and I feel completely emotionally spent, and we have barely started. So thank you. That was incredible stuff. And I would like to just stay on La Bohème for a moment. And Tony, I was thinking about this earlier. You know, out of all the operas, when I was getting into opera, when I was, you know, in my teens, and I was a bit moody and sulky, and it was like, no one understands me. Puccini understands me, because, you know, I really related as a youngster to everything that was going on in the story. I think particularly in the characterization. What do you think? What do you think is the enduring appeal of La Bohème?
Well, La Bohème, through the words of Murger that were provided, that were the initial inspiration, gave Puccini the opportunity to, in music, describe his youth, his relationship with his friends, with school, with college, with the conservatory, of course, where he went, and the difficulties, how to live, how to eat, the personal relationships. You know, these kids sometimes were near starvation, but somehow the fire of youth and the desire to achieve and to live is very strong in the piece. And I think this it's like this hymn to youth, if you like, is very, very beautiful. Now, there are tragic moments in the piece, and I mean, through the character of Mimi, the piece shows the other side, that poverty, illness, and the helplessness of the people around her also plays a part in life. So you have this wonderful exuberance and this darkness, this sadness, and the combination is a real winner, because the piece gets you every time. When the end hits, it's hard, even in a bad performance, I'm going to say it, it works.
That's interesting. That can be done badly, though, by the way. Yeah.
Well, it can't be done badly.
But it's interesting, talk about light and shade, light and darkness. Bring you in here, Danny, with Musetta, you know, because in a sense she's this good time girl, but what we see her, I don't want to use the phrase her journey, but I'm going to say it anyway, her journey, you know, she learns life's toughest lessons in the most heartbreaking of ways, really, and this sort of toughness but vulnerability, you know, what do you love about that role?
Well, I think when you could look at Musetta from the outside, you could see that in Act 2, you see a big flavor, personality, you know, somebody who's very fiery, somebody who's really out there. She sort of sets everybody off. There's lots of people on stage who often go, oh, she's quite like over the top. And one of the things that I've loved doing Musetta in Covent Garden, especially with Richard Jones as well, directing me, was like, I really wanted to tether the Musetta that we see in Act 2 to the Musetta we reveal in Act 3 to the Musetta who comes in Act 4, and she, you know, has lost a lot. And within this flamboyant personality in Act 2 is actually the good person inside who will give her earrings to sell in order to help Mimi at the end. So this was the joy for me of this role, was finding the human person inside this great character. So, you know, to come and sing the aria, it's very, very easy to, you know, quando me va, la 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 la, everybody's singing. It's a sort of good, it's got the good time girl feel to it. What I've loved is to be able to sort of tether that to something very real. And I, you know, I can't say everybody on earth, but quite a lot of people will know what it's like when you were a young person and you wanted to say something, but you couldn't get it out to the person you love, and so you have a tipple, and then, you know, and then out it comes, the truth comes out. And so I think that's where this aria has been very fulfilling to me, to do the tabletop dance, to do the good time girl, but also to put something very, very, very real underneath. And yeah, I think that she doesn't have as much time vocally to show who she is. She's got this huge scene in Act 2 where there's a lot going on. And then we only meet her in Act 3 for a small amount of time where we get to watch everything kind of completely unravel. And then we meet her again. She's found Mimi. And, women at the time were very restricted in what they could do for income. So, this is another really interesting element, which was looking at, why does Musetta leave Marcello? What are the circumstances? He's so poor. He has nothing to offer. But she ends up with another man who, can be played in a very kind of like old buffoon-y kind of way, but actually in Richard's production, he's, given great agency, and he's a proper candidate for a amorous relationship with someone as undeniable as Musetta. And I think that creates a really interesting dynamic of, it tells us a little bit about how women had to make decisions on who they coupled up with, because who could pay their rent,
Well, that's a very, very interesting point, and actually one for both of you, really, that opera, over the centuries, these operas were created in what were essentially men's worlds. My God, composers, librettists, they gave women the biggest chance to have, just through the art of opera, the biggest chance to have sort of agency, to have some sort of power and to show their emotions, their feelings. And
Yes, but Puccini has been accused of torturing and killing off all his female heroines. Musetta's not one of them, but certainly Mimi, Tosca, Madame Butterfly, and
well, that's
Liu,
true.
and
death was often the only answer.
But he treasured those female roles above all the other roles, and he wrote he wrote probably his best music for the female roles. So it's a very unusual relationship Puccini had with them. The need to exalt, somehow lift their characters and make them no more than probably than with Madame Butterfly and certainly Suor Angelica, but then destroy them. It's a very interesting psychology, maybe even a little sick, but
I was going to say it's a psychiatrist's wildest dream, I think. So I think I'd like to go to a few reader questions. I'll just do one before the next performance. Let me just scan my list here. What have we got? Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. This is for you, Tony. This is from one of our subscribers, Debbie, who asks, does Sir Antonio find differences, challenges between conducting for ballet and opera?
I've not done a lot of ballet conducting. I did in my early years at Covent Garden. I loved it because being in the room with dancers during the rehearsals, it's incredible. I mean, I'm used to lungs and watching this, listening for the singers breathe and watching, the timing of the breath. But here it's the legs and different bodies have different timings. It was thrilling for me. Of course, ballet is also known for adapting the music, especially in terms of tempo, to the necessities of the choreography. And that sometimes is quite difficult if you're not used to it. To bend the phrase this way because that jump or that lift needs that kind of timing. And so there's a feeling that you're bending the music in a way that you wouldn't normally do. But actually, if you get into the spirit of the physicality of it and learn what that physicality is and the whys of certain things, it's a fantastic art. In that way, it's different, of course, from conducting opera. As I said, lungs, legs, it's quite different. I'm always shocked when I see the dancers come out and they don't start singing. there are no words, so... but I get used to that after about 10 minutes.
Right, yes. And the sound of little feet, the patter of tiny feet. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's all storytelling. And you have to achieve that in both disciplines, no question.
That's great. That's a really interesting way of that. I've never thought of it like that. But swaying, adapting yourself to the physicality and the change of tempo. That's really great. So we've got a second performance now. This is from Massenet's Cendrillon, and here to introduce it, Danny. It's a signature one for you, isn't it? This.
I do love singing Cendrillon, and that's Cinderella, and it's told in quite a traditional way. So this aria takes place when Cinderella has been rejected by the prince in some way. Obviously, he doesn't know who she is, but in the encounter they had, he blanks her basically, and she feels incredibly rejected. But Cendrillon has nothing else in her life. So where her reaction seems quite extreme, she says, "I'm going to go and die, with the fairies." That seems quite extreme from one interaction, but actually her life is so void of any silver linings. So she places a lot of expectation into this mirage almost of the prince, and when it deceives her, she is bereft.
That's great. Take it away, Tony and Danny.
tout jauni, relique d'un beau jour. Un bleu rameau comme on aime ce que l'on quitte. Et toi, le grand fauteuil, quand j'étais petite, je courais me blottir bien vite, frileusement, sur les genoux de ma maman, de maman, si bonne et si jolie, qui fredonnait en me berçant. Si l'angélus dors, mon petit ange, dors comme Jésus, dormez dans la grange. Puisque tout bonheur me fuit, sur les roches sacrées, sans crainte, j'irai de nuit malgré les ravenants et le follet qui luit. Je veux mourir sous les jeunes divines.
That was quite extraordinary, and I don't know. I've said before we're in quite a small studio, but being in the proximity of Danny and Tony here, and hearing that was really quite something. So Cendrillon is one of several operas that will be available on Royal Opera House Stream, which I mentioned at the beginning of this event. There's so much to dig into. For my money, we've got one of probably the greatest new opera of the 21st century, written on skin by George Benjamin. That's there. Crystal Pite's Flight Path, acclaimed ballet from Crystal Pite, and recent productions like the dazzlingly inventive Rigoletto that we saw at Covent Garden last year. These will all be on the stream. And now I'm going to turn to Tony to talk a bit more about this, because streaming was something we all got very used to during the pandemic. It was a way of, of us getting our arts fix. But, there are other real reasons for having a stream, geographical reasons. People may not be able to get to see the opera, mobility reasons. I mean, what to you is the real selling point of this new initiative?
Well, we have a cinema season, and this streaming platform is an extension of that. It's a place where we can store our library and operatic and ballet titles that people can not only look at, but since there's so much extra content, little musical lessons, musical introductions, dramaturgical introductions, historical introductions sometimes, interviews with the singers and the directors. So it's a place where you can go and immerse yourself and frankly, get an education. If you don't know something about a piece and you want to know more, or just discover, I think this is a fantastic opportunity to do that. The other selling point, I think, is to realize that each month there'll be additions to the library. So it's not something that's static. It will continue to grow over time, and you'll discover all manner of productions that we do. And we're an eclectic house. We don't have just a house style. So there's something, I think, for everyone to enjoy, from ballet to opera. And we have, my God, the fantastic corps de ballet that we have, and the great soloists, dancers, you know, that you'll be able to see. And because, obviously, the one thing about a filmed production is that the close-up, you see this stuff in close-up, and, you know, with the dancers and with the singers, to see what it is actually that they're expressing in detail. That is, I think, a positive. Now, all that said, and we're here to sell the streaming, nothing replaces the live experiences, because the live experience has an electricity that is unique. And I'm sure Danny agrees with me on that point. And to see and to be there at an event. But streaming is certainly the next best thing. And like I said, all that material that's around, I think makes it so well useful for people.
It seems like, as you were saying, really an extraordinary educational tool, but also what strikes me, it's so strange with the live arts thing that even 20 years ago, there was a sort of finiteness to them, because it wasn't like film or TV. There wasn't, the odd thing would be recorded, but not a great deal would be recorded, certainly on screen. And so this is a way of kind of keeping these things for posterity and generations, you know, generations to come, actually being able to view them. So, have you got if you were a novice was coming to this site, is there a production or two that you would point them towards?
Well, this is unfair, because a lot of the titles are ones that I'm conducting.
It's okay, you're allowed to brag
It's
for a
not
moment.
biased at all.
Look, you know, there are extremes. If you look at the Tosca, I mean, with the cast, Jonas Kaufmann, Angela Georgiou, and Bryn Tervel, and myself conducting. We added 2 performances, I remember, to accommodate this, to film it, because the cast was just so hot. And Puccini's Tosca is one of those titles, you know, it's up there with the great titles. It's great theater, it's melodrama pure. Even Grand Guignol, it's violent, it's passionate, it's beautiful, it's insidious, it's full of hope and dashed hopes, of course. So that is one thing, and the music is, look, sensational, of course. But then go and look at Anna Nicole and see a new opera written by Mark Anthony Turnage about Anna Nicole Smith, girl who, with extreme enhancements to her body, wanted her 15 minutes of fame, and she got more than that. But she also had a terrible downfall. And so it's very much an opera, a fantastic performance by Eva Maria Westbrook, and a great cast all around in a modern production that is of our time. So it's not only a modern opera. A lot of modern operas are set on like Shakespeare or old stories, or, you know, and done with music that is of today. But this is a contemporary story, so it's a real modern opera. Those are 2 extremes. But I think this is what the platform is hoping to achieve these extremes and everything in the middle.
And thinking of contemporary concerns, Danny, you know, you've done a lot of opera, and how important do you think it is for opera to look at the here and now, to look at problems around the world, to look at situations, emotional situations that we all go through and that we can all relate to in the 21st century?
I think it's incredibly crucial. And just an example that came to mind as you mentioned that was I did a Chicago lyric opera. I did a new premiere of an opera called Bel Canto, which was based on Anne Patchett's novel, which is a story about terrorism. Right during the rehearsals of this, the Bataclan massacre happened in Paris, and it just it brought everything to like a very, very grim reality. And we were in a theatrical space asking questions like, what does this mean when we go home and see the same thing on television, like in a constant stream where we have this 24-hour news reel of negativity? But actually, it's so unbelievably crucial that we continue to make art. In fact, art is life. And as Tony was saying with Anna Nicole, isn't it amazing that, in a very recent story, and there are many more, and there will be many more operas written about some of the figures we've seen in the last even 15 years who have, had these epic demises, which is great candidates for opera because there's so much melodrama even in today's world, even in the world of reality TV and in the world of the quick 15 minutes. There are tragedies that unfold all the time, and some of them are known to us and some of them are sort of revealed. And I think that is so operatic in its nature. Opera is absolutely could not be more relevant when it comes to that.
It's very true. Putin the opera, I think we would like to see very, very soon.
Wow.
So I'm going to go back to some reader questions now. I just flick through my notes. And, this one's slightly off-brand, but I think we're OK to ask this. This is for Danny. This is from David. He asks, what does Danielle most love about living at Glyndebourne? And what does it bring to her singing? For those of you who don't know, Danielle is in fact married to Gus Christie, who is the executive chairman of Glyndebourne, which is the country house opera in West Sussex, East Sussex even. So yes.
Indeed. Not West Sussex.
Not West Sussex, definitely not West Sussex.
I made my Glyndebourne debut in 2005 as Cleopatra in Julius Caesar, which was a very big milestone in my career, and I met my husband I knew him then, but we got together, I guess, 2 years after that, and I've continued to have a great relationship with the house that has its artistic administration, and Gus, my husband's grandfather, founded Glyndebourne, so built the theatre. It was his idea, basically. And what has it brought to my life? Well, obviously love and happiness. And I live in England now, so that's a big change from living in America. I love working in British theatres. So I found the work ethic to just be top notch. When I sing at a place where the commute happens to be about 10 seconds walk, it has lots of different advantages and also challenges. One being that almost every premiere I've ever done at Glyndebourne, I'm entertaining people the night before for a different opening. And that's all. I always think, well, will I ever get an opening that's going to have a day off before? But, this is just one of or we have a house that has, we keep the 30 or so different artistic teams that put the operas together. They stay with us all summer. So it's wonderful because you meet all the people from the business that you know. And I would say Dame Carey probably gave me the best advice. She was wagging her finger at me quite a bit, telling me that I've got to preserve and conserve and, find the time to preserve myself and not lay myself out for every single thing. But I found a really good balance with that. And of course, working at the theater is amazing. And even now, commuting here, it's everything's incredibly local to me. And I love it. It's great.
You talked about the stages you like working in Opera House in the UK. Going back to the Royal Opera House, I was lucky enough to go on that stage a few years ago. I think I was invited back by the Bolshoi and to stand on that stage once the curtain was down. It's extraordinary. It's so big. It's just overwhelming. I mean, I realise I'm not cut out. I will never be in the Bolshoi or indeed in the Royal Opera House. But that stage, what in particular, what is? Do you find it very special?
I have this memory when I made my debut at Covent Garden. It was in Acis and Galatea, it actually marked the first collaboration between Royal Opera House and Royal Ballet, the first production they did together, which was done by Wayne McGregor. And I had, I sung the role, I gave it my all, and I had to dance as well with Ed Watson from the Royal Ballet. So it was an incredible, once-in-a-lifetime moment in a theatrical production where you are asked to hold your own next to the primo ballerino of the Royal Ballet. I was terrified, but exhilarated. And then I had this moment. I turned. Wayne had me turn around and sort of walk towards the public with my sort of mind and heart open like this. And I took these 4 steps, and it hit me it just hit me so intensively that I had just made my debut at one of the most storied opera houses in the world. I mean, the stage is beautiful to look at, but the house is really beautiful to look at too. And I looked out at that moment, and it took my breath away. I became very emotional, but it was, it's the stuff of dreams, actually, to sing at Covent Garden. I think if you're a young opera singer, and I started when I was 8, and to sing at Covent Garden, wow, it is an amazing thing that's now a reality. But all the experiences I've had here, they're all different as well, and the collaborations are incredibly special. And there's always, top tier talent, of course, but what you can learn, even when you are working with the best of the best, there's always so much to learn and take away, and the work ethic is just really, really exceptional there.
I think what you're saying is that opera is in very rude health in this country, actually. Tony, would you agree that the industry is buoyant now, that it's in a good place?
Yes, I would say that opera's doing really, really well. But, of course, arts in general, as that whole subject is a little bit more difficult to deal with, certainly politically, and we're constantly being accused of being elitist, that Covent Garden is a place you can't get into. Well, that's completely untrue. You might have to plan to get the cheaper tickets and things like that. But you plan to go to a really good restaurant. Try getting into a football game. In London, you cannot get into a football game.
A Coldplay ticket, I think, in a stadium would be far more than many of the tickets.
Yes, so we're dealing with these things. And also the educational environment for schools for young people. Not enough young people, a wide variety of young people are getting musical training or musical exposure, and so the kids whose parents can afford to give them lessons are the lucky ones, and a lot of people are getting left behind. And so the future is what I'm a little bit concerned about, more than a little bit concerned about.
That's partly to do, I guess, with music education as well.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But opera, people come out and sing their hearts out, and you've got an orchestra. It's obviously it's an art form that is horrifically expensive in itself, but to see all these things come together and hear every discipline, even in an opera, you have dance. I conducted Aida last night. There was a ballet in the middle of Act 2. So we had ballet, we had huge chorus, we had the orchestra, we had the production with the sets, the great singers. It's a complete art form. And so much great music has been written for it. And the ballet is so varied because you have the great complete evenings like the Swan Lakes, the Sleeping Beauties, the Cinderellas. But then you have these triple bills with more modern works, more adventurous work is being done. So you have such a wonderful variety for the punter to choose from. And there's a lot of competition. I mean, the West End is just down the street, Well, we're part of the West End. Your game's got to be pretty good, So that's what we continue to work at. And I think when people realize that you're giving your all and you're producing something that is worth seeing and worth paying for. It's a great thing.
Also, the opera is the last live experience that is completely unamplified. I mean, where can you go anywhere else and experience the raw human voice coming at you? I mean, with not through a box, and we hear everything through a box now. We watch on our phones. We have earphones all the time. If we go to a concert, any pop concert, it's going to come. All sounds coming through us through an artificial amplification. And opera, and most of the people who I've ever had to the opera who never came before, they're completely blown away by just what it is to have a human voice hit you in the chest, and it's really transformative. It's impossible not to be moved by just that experience of hearing a live voice with nothing else. I mean, it's completely pure in its production.
And it's dramatic in itself.
Yeah.
It's theatre in itself.
In itself. And, well, that begs the question, actually. Can you remember the first time you stepped inside an opera house as a punter, as a member of the audience, and you were blown away by a performance?
I was a kid, I think, sitting somewhere in the gods there at Covent Garden watching Trovatore, and I remember that it was very dark and there was this crazy woman singing on stage in front of a fire, you know. You know, I come full circle next year because although I've recorded that opera, I've never conducted it in the theatre. And so since when I was a boy, I mean really a young boy, I mean like 7 or 8, and now I finally get to conduct that crazy woman in front of the fire, you know. So I'm looking forward to that next season.
That's a big thing. How about you, Danny? Do you remember what it was?
I was trying to think. One of my earliest live opera memories was as a kid in LA, actually going to see Tristan and Isolde. Was one of the first things I saw, and I saw it from like the 5th row, and it was intense. It was so intense to take in. I mean, it was, you know, Wagner is it's very broad.
In no
it's
sense is Wagner entry level, is it?
No, but I mean, I guess because my earliest experience was with opera, and this is where the stream will come in incredibly handy for people who can't get to the opera, was watching things on television and listening to CDs and hearing opera. And already my dreams from 7 and 8 had begun. You know, I was lucky enough that my parents persevered to find a teacher who would teach an 8-year-old, because I was already a sort of singing and dancing girl, already completely bitten by the performing bug. I took these lessons, and then I went, oh my God, all my friends can sing and dance and act, and none of them can sing like this, and I want to do this. And then I was just listening, watching things on TV. So, you know, streaming is our new TV, really. I mean, I know many people don't even have a TV anymore. I'm very grateful that I had those exposures, because I probably was too young to go. I mean, I don't have a memory really of going to the opera in Australia, but at 8, I knew I wanted to be an opera singer. And I'm very fortunate, though, that I had that support to be able to sort of follow my childhood dream.
Okay, well, I've got the million-dollar question from one of our readers called Charlie, and this is actually to both of you. So let's start this time with Danny. What has been your career highlight to date?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'd probably say operatically, my career highlight was singing Cleopatra in Julius Caesar, although I did have many different successes with it. So I'm very fortunate to say that I have had quite an opportunity to really explore the role in many goes. But another thing I really enjoyed was doing the last night of the proms at the Royal Albert Hall, and I got to sing, you know, for everybody, and I did Hyde Park at the same time, so it was a big mad dash.
Proms in the Park.
I did that, and then went into the Royal Albert Hall and then sang the Sound of Music 50th anniversary with the whole nation. So that was a major highlight.
That must be incredibly emotional.
It was. It was, and I was also on the run because I was going from Hyde Park, so there was no time to really process the whole thing. But it was an incredible moment. I mean, you're very fortunate if you get asked to do the last night of the proms as a singer. It's a real honor to be asked, and I'll never forget it, that night.
And for you, Tony?
You know, every premiere that goes well at the Opera House is a highlight. So I'm just going to leave it at that. When all the blood, sweat, and tears lead to something where the whole company is on fire. You know, and I felt that last night. You know, we had a premiere of Aida. That's a really important title, and orchestra, chorus, soloists, everybody was firing on all cylinders. It's just, I say, God, you know.
Without wishing to bring it down, it does beg a question. You know, I think I can ask you because you've been involved in so many sort of five-star productions, both of you have. But if something is perhaps not quite as well received, does that bother you, or do you just move on and go on with the next?
You know what's funny about London is because there are so many dailies, the press, if something is not liked, half the press will say it's not good, but the other half will say, oh, it was great. I don't think you ever get, if something is really liked, there'll always be some dissenters. You know, so you win and you can't win all the time, you know, and so what's important is that I know we did something really good, so it's personally, and in the house, that we're honest, that it's not just about how loud the audience claps. I mean, that's a fantastic thing, I mean, believe me, but that we're honest with ourselves. We could have done better, or, you know, or, wow, I don't know how we did it, but we hit it. We really nailed it. You know, and that's, so, honesty, you know, just being open. And I've gotten on so well with all the stage directors that I've worked with, because I've always been open to what they're actually trying to achieve, and what my part in that might play to help that come about. Whether I have to, you know, do this a little bit with the music. I don't know if you can read my body language, but I will always try, and therefore bring a coherence to the evening, so that the staging and the musical part are one. They're not separate. You know, what I tell you what I really hate is when, the music was really good, but the staging was no good. I just don't understand. To me, it's all, or vice versa. And I think it has to. It's this. That's why you do opera, and they're interconnected.
And of course, one thing to say, as many people watching this will know, you will be going to the London Symphony Orchestra before not too long. Replaces
in 2024.
2024. What is that? What you will miss most? What you've just described, that enmeshing, is what will you miss most about?
Well, look, I've been in an opera house. By the time I leave, I will have been in an opera house for like 35 years. I started in Oslo, in Norway, and I was 10 years in Brussels at La Monnaie Theatre. Now I will be, at the end of my tenure, I will be 22 years at Covent Garden. That's a long time. So it's time, perhaps, to do something different. But I can tell you that a great part of what making music is storytelling. And I think that that's as important in a symphony as it is in the theatre. It's not the same. Of course it's not the same. You don't have the help, the visual element. But conjuring up some kind of dramaturgy for the audience and for the musicians to hang on to, I think is, well, it's the way I work, and I think it's essential. So that's how I'm looking. Everything's an opera.
All the world is an opera, which kind of sounds great, but also sounds terrifying.
Yeah, well, welcome to my world.
So, well, that's great. That's a really lovely answer, and that I'd like to now segue seamlessly to the final performance. So, Danny, if you can tell us about this, something you feel very passionate about, from Carmen's Bizet's Carmen, even, Subtitles.
Yes.
L'amour est un oiseau rebelle. Excuse my terrible French, but could you tell us a bit?
Well, I'm not sure it needs any introduction at all. I mean, it's one of the probably
well,
most famous arias that's ever been sung, and I resisted singing it for absolutely ages. Everyone said to me, "You should be Carmen," and I said, "No, I don't think I'd be hired as Carmen when I was a younger singer." And one day I decided to do it in a concert.
Have you done Carmen before?
No, but I sort of ended
you've got to
up.
do Carmen.
Well, I ended up doing it in concert, and I was talking about bitten. I just looked at the text. I memorized it as a text. I looked at it. So I was completely.
Oh yeah, you
bitten
have to do Carmen.
by the bug. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, this is your this is the test piece now. Thank you.
Quand je vous aimerai, ma foi, je ne sais pas, peut-être jamais, peut-être demain. Mais pas aujourd'hui, c'est certain. L'amour est un oiseau rebelle que nul ne peut apprivoiser. Et c'est bien, on veut qu'on l'appelle, s'il lui convient de refuser. Rien n'est fait, une sous-prière, l'un parle bien, l'autre se tait. Et c'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'a rien dit, mais il me plaît. L'amour est enfant de bohème, il n'a jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. L'oiseau que tu croyais surprendre battit de l'aile et s'envola. L'amour est loin, tu peux l'attendre, tu ne l'attends plus, il est là, tout autour de toi. Vite, vite, il vient, s'en va, puis il revient. Tu crois le tenir, il t'évite, tu crois l'éviter, il te tient. L'amour est enfant de bohème, il n'a jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Et si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi.
Bravo. Well, that was truly exceptional. What a way to end. The roof has been raised here. Well, that's it. All that remains for me to say is thank you to my guests, Antonio Pappano and Danielle de Niese, and thank you to the subscribers for watching this event. Remember that you can get a special offer on the Royal Opera House stream, which is £1 a month for the next 3 months if you visit the Telegraph Extra website before the end of October. Also visit the website for additional competitions and events. So happy listening, happy viewing, and good night.